Hi, good day, everybody. My name is Alan Catlett with the International Franchise Association. Very nice to see everyone today. Thank you for joining us. We're excited to continue our webinar series, a full webinar series on labor and hiring. As we step back from conceiving of this idea of the labor and hiring series, we realize that the issue is not just a single issue, it's really a multitude of issues. And so this is, I think, our fifth or sixth part in the series, and we're going to focus today on hiring and attracting talent, which is an issue that obviously everybody is facing right now. And so we have been joined today by some fantastic members. We have Claudia San Pedro, who's president of Sonic Drive-In, Paul Rayner, a Sonic Nashville DMA franchisee, Emma Dickerson, CEO and president of Home Helpers Home Care, Jerry Akers, franchisee of Great Clips, and Abby Schmidt from Paychex, who will be managing and moderating our session. Just a couple of quick notes before we get started. We are recording today's webinar, and we'll make it available to IFA members later on today at community.franchise.org. And if you have any questions during today's session, please add them through the chat box, and we'll wrap with the questions towards the end of the session. With that, I'm going to pass it over to Abby to lead us off. Thank you, Abby.
Excellent. Thank you so much, Alan, for the nice introduction. And Paychex is honored to be the IFA's preferred supplier for human resources and payroll, and we are committed to the success of franchising and really excited for today's webinar. As Alan said, my name is Abby Schmidt, and I am a franchise partnership development manager, and my role is to identify and onboard new franchise partners. And our best-in-class technology integrates payroll, HR, and benefits while offering your brand scalability and flexibility to grow while providing white glove service to our clients. Today, our panel represents a variety of verticals, and they're going to be sharing best practices from their experience attracting, hiring, and retaining talent during the pandemic. I'm really excited for our great panelists. So let's start with introductions. So I'll start with Claudia and Paul, if you'd like to share your name, your role, and your brand, please.
Yes, my name is Claudia San Pedro, and I'm the president of Sonic Drive-In. We have more than 3,500 drive-ins in 46 states, the largest chain of drive-in restaurants. And I have here with me, he's going to introduce himself, but I'm going to brag on him a little bit. Paul Rayner owns 31 drive-ins, and his average unit volume is $2.5 million. But Paul?
Well, thank you, Claudia. Like she said, my name is Paul Rayner. I've been in Sonic for about 43 years. We're in the Nashville market. Nashville, Tennessee is a great area, and just looking forward to the day and helping pass along any information I can.
Excellent. Thank you. Emma, on to you.
Yes, I'm Emma Dickerson. I'm the CEO and president of Home Helpers Home Care. We are based in Cincinnati, Ohio, a franchisor having about 320 franchises across 42 states in North America and the U.S. and Canada, and very happy to be here with you today.
Wonderful, Emma. Thank you. And last but certainly not least, Mr. Jerry Akers.
Hi, Abby. Yeah, Jerry Akers. I'm a franchisee with Great Clips, 36 salons in Iowa and Nebraska. I'm a regional developer for the Joint Chiropractic for 3 states and a franchisee of the same.
Excellent. So definitely we have a lot of different perspectives that our great speakers are going to be sharing today. So let's jump right into it. Our first question, what channel has been the most effective for your team to attract new workers? Have you been advertising within your app or possibly putting signs up at drive-thrus or your locations? So Claudia and Paul, we'll start with you.
Well, I think it's safe to say we've been doing all of the above. There's no stone left unturned in this environment. I do want to highlight a few things. You know, as we look at all of the challenges we faced over the past 19 months, one of the silver linings is that it really spurs creative and innovative thinking. And from a franchisor perspective, one of the innovations we did at Sonic was we actually, for the first time ever, took a portion of our national media budget, which is usually used to just focus on consumer-facing promotions and our drive-in chain, and we set aside that portion of media dollars to do a national recruitment campaign. And what I would tell you that the unlock there was, previously, we've got a partnership with Snag-a-Job, careers.com. We provide and have contracted good pricing for our franchisees to access that. The most effective media channel that we found in this recruitment campaign was TikTok, and not TV. It is, as you look at the core employee base that we are trying to attract, TikTok became where we were able to relay our message, and we got an increase in applications. So that's something that we've done that's been successful and that we intend to continue, actually. But I'm going to turn it over to Paul because he's got some really great unlock.
Okay, thanks, Claudia. One of the things we do, well, of course, not one of the things, most of the things we do is what corporate helps us to do. WorkStream, for example, we're involved with them. They go on and send employees to us and applicants. We do the text to apply program, and that seems to work really well. Each store is set up with its own text number where former and future employees can text their information to us, and we call them for interviews. That's how we try to hire most new people. We've got some other ways I'll talk about with former employees and whatnot later on, but that's how we try to go out and reach new employees.
Excellent. Very creative with TikTok. I'm going to have to look up some of those videos. Emma, how about you?
Well, as Claudia said, there is no silver bullet today. It requires a very complex approach to recruiting. We are not as much on TikTok. The employees that our franchisees are trying to recruit are generally a little bit older. However, we are using more, we defined what we call the caregiver journey, and it's how we react from the time a applicant inquires with us to what that path is going to look like to a conditional hire within 72 hours, and then orientation and I've said, years ago we used to be able to go fish for talent. Now you have to go hunt. And that looks a little bit differently. And so we've used more video. We use our Exceptional Caregiver campaign nationally and a digital campaign to help people understand we're mission driven and what good looks like and what working for us looks like. And that's been very successful. The other thing that we've done is we partnered with the Military Spouse Employment Partnership. We're one of the few home care companies, I think there's 2 that now are working with them. It's through the Department of Defense. Military spouses and their families have a very difficult time gaining employment because they need flexibility and transferability, and we're able to provide both of those at Home Helpers. And so that's one of the changes that we did a couple of years ago, even going into this pandemic, that we know has proven successful to give us access to a little bit of a different applicant pool as well.
Very creative. And Jerry?
Yeah, I agree with the other panelists that there's no one-size-fits-all solution. We're on every platform there is right now, trying to put as much creative information out there to grab people's attention. They've got a very short attention span, and there's a lot of opportunities for them today that they didn't have before, including jobs above their pay grade, I would say. So we've got to do what we can to get their attention. So we're on all the social media platforms as well as all the hiring platforms. Since we're licensed, the best way that we've been able to find people is by basically word of mouth. So reaching out to get our stylists to get on their Facebook page and talk about how great it is to work here and all the benefits we have and those kinds of things, because a fairly large share of their audience graduated with them or around them from the schools. So that way we can tap directly into that vein of potential applicants, if you will, who talk the same language, and that gives them a little different attitude as they come in and apply. And right now that's where we're getting the vast majority of our applications.
Just like having raving fans or raving customers, having happy employees who are going to tell other people how great it is to work at your location. Great. So you all mentioned the importance of keeping the talent funnel full, the fishing versus hunting mentality. So when you do have a vacancy, you're able to reach out to a pool of applicants. We touched on a couple new tools and technology that you've been using. TikTok, very clever, word of mouth, through the military. Anything else unique that you have come up with?
I would add, and I'll have Paul talk a little bit about how he's attracting some former employees in a different way. And it goes back to the importance of us providing a positive job experience, because even if they leave, are they willing to come back to you?
Yeah, and one of the things we did, my daughter kind of put this together, and she said, hey, I'm gonna put my Facebook post out there, and each one of our locations also has its own Facebook page. So a couple of months ago, she put out there, hey, former employees, we need help, and if you're willing to come back, give us a call. And I was really surprised at how many former employees that had another job that only worked maybe 2 or 3 days a week somewhere else called us up and said, hey, I'll be more than happy to come back and work 2 days a week. And, used to, we wouldn't hire anybody to work 2 days a week, but now we'll hire you if you just work 1. So we probably hired 25, 30 people in about 4 stores that were former employees that just wanted to come back because how we treated them earlier when they worked for us, they came back to help us out. So it really helped a whole lot.
That's terrific. That says a lot about your culture, too, that they would want to come back. Jerry?
Oh,
anything else unique?
Well, we talked about the Facebook platform and those kinds of things. So I would just add, prior to COVID, we were fairly comfortable with recruiting. I think probably everybody could speak to that. It was much easier. We had some very basic things that we would do, basically go into the cosmetology schools and do presentations and, a handful of regular, normal recruiting type things. But we can't do that anymore. And I would argue virtually no employer can do that. So looking at other opportunities like Facebook and LinkedIn and TikTok, as they mentioned, and some things like that, when you get gray in your hair and you're responsible for recruiting, you don't always think that way. So my suggestion would be is to find somebody that is more of a technologically savvy age, like my daughters who are in their 20s and 30s, because they live that life. And then they can tap into all those vehicles that are available out there, and they'll do a much better job than certainly I would do. So that would be a little word of advice, I guess.
I would also add that we need to be conscious of speed. It is a very, very different hiring environment than it was pre-pandemic. And in our industry, it was already tough. I mean, we were already experiencing challenges in hiring. We were in a full employment economy. And speed is incredibly important. Having dedicated resources that across all the platforms you're using recognizes and sees those employment inquiries immediately, that we're using text more than ever. And that's been the most successful because nobody answers their phone if they don't know the number that you're calling. So text and even utilizing video as your employment submissions, so that you can see individuals, the hiring manager can see individuals, they can see body language, they can understand communication going into hiring interviews, and even doing some of them like we're doing today via Zoom becomes very important. So speed and out of the box thinking about how you're presenting yourself and the way you're recruiting individuals to your company and culture have become incredibly important.
And Emma, I think you framed it really well talking about speed. And so what does speed look like in this day and age? And it looks like texting, but here's the additional piece we found on speed, which I think is relevant. And Jerry, you referenced this as well. The attention span and the willingness to put in the time is abbreviated. And so what we've learned, right, is how do we make the application process easier? And it is about speed. If I have to answer more than 10 questions, I may give up. So we've asked ourselves in the application process, what are the most important questions we need to ask? In the texting, things, again, we would never consider. We've used on the texting, starting wages at, right, to capture them, or flexible scheduling. So to the extent possible, highlighting some of those aspects. And it's looking at speed a little bit differently and what that means.
Do you try to respond to incoming texts or inquiries, applicants within a certain time frame? Is it less than an hour? We're all glued to our phones so much as it is. I can imagine that having applicants texting you could be a full-time job just to manage that and respond timely.
We try to respond as quickly as we get them. We don't want them to go somewhere else. So we put somebody in charge of every store, every location, sometimes more than one person, to get on those tech programs. And as soon as somebody applies, get them in there, get them interviewed and get them hired. We don't want them to go somewhere else.
There's so many platforms today that allow you insight into when those things happen that it can be instantaneous. Now, there is obviously the human element. If somebody's doing it at 2 o'clock in the morning, that may be a bit of a challenge, but it really does need to be instantaneous, or they're moving on to the next opportunity.
Yeah, the word immediately springs to mind for me. So, as a corporation, we've got one person charged entirely with hiring, recruiting, and those kinds of things. And then one of my daughters is her superior, but also the backup for that kind of thing. So everything goes to both of them. If one of them is tied up with a child issue or school or any of the other date night or whatever it might happen to be, the other one springs to action because, as we've all shared, there's a short attention span. Everybody's looking for help. So a lot of times the first one that gets back to them with the right offer is the one that's going to get it. And I've heard lots of stories of people that wait 24 hours to get back to people. And I'm telling you, they get 10 offers in that 24 hours, even in the middle of the night sometimes, as things become more automated. So immediately is the word that I use when I'm talking about that.
Excellent. Can't be too fast, it sounds like. Jerry, I'm going to start with you for this next question, since you and I had the chance to talk about this summer in DC at the IFA Leadership Summit. What are you doing differently than pre-COVID to stay competitive to retain your best employees?
Yeah, so retention's the key, because if the bucket doesn't have holes in it, you don't have to do nearly as much recruiting right now. And many times it's easier to keep employees and find them anyhow. So, during COVID, we took that as an opportunity to increase our culture. We already had a great culture element, but when we were distanced from our employees for a period of time during COVID, we ramped up our Facebook presence. So literally multiple times a day, somebody in our leadership group was doing a video or sending something out so that we could continue to stay connected, reinforce that we were here doing everything we could to keep them safe and bring them back as soon as possible and things like that, where many other people just went dark for their employees during that period of time. So changing the culture and then carrying that forward now that we're into, I'll say normal times. Nothing's normal about where we're at right now, but you get my drift. But I'm kind of the big picture innovative guy in our family. And so I literally sat back and I said, what is it that keeps our staff, or why do they decide that they have to leave? And then I put it on a list and I had to start figuring out ways to, satisfy those kinds of things. In our business, about 96-7% of the employees are women, and the vast majority of them are, they have children. They're younger and they have children. So daycare is the biggest issue. During COVID, daycares closed, some of them permanently, and many of them are at 60% of capacity still today. So our staff they just literally could not find daycare. If they found it, they couldn't afford it. And if they could afford it, many times it wasn't great daycare. It was somebody putting their kid with a peanut butter sandwich in front of the TV all day. So we decided to go out on a limb, and part of it's the entrepreneur side of us, but we bought a daycare. That's the bottom line. We bought a daycare, and we structured it in such a way that our staff could get some subsidized daycare. We extended the hours so that it's more retail hours, so that people don't have to worry about picking their child up at a certain time or something like that. And it was just widely accepted that this was something nobody else would do. So we went beyond the level many people would do. But I would argue there are many employers in every town that have the same situation. So if 3 or 4 or 5 employers decided to go together, and because of the amount of money you put into it or something like that, you get X number of spaces reserved for your staff, There's a lot of opportunities to make that a part of your culture, a part of what you stand for, and set yourself completely apart from literally anybody in your field.
Claudia, I see you and Paul nodding your heads. Do you have a similar situation?
We do. The majority of our general managers are women with children. And, you know, as I think about it and being creative in that sense, that is a structural barrier and challenge from our perspective. I think one of the things that we've learned along the way that we've changed our practices, both as a franchisor who owns company restaurants and operates them, I'll tell you, one is learning, and Paul mentioned this, is, you know, the things that we used to say, we won't hire you if you're only willing to work 2 days. Well, it's okay if you want to work 2 days. It's okay. We'll take you. We want to be flexible. You don't want to work nights. Okay, because you've got a family or you don't have daycare. Things that before we weren't sufficiently flexible or sensitive to, we're becoming a lot more sensitive. The other piece I'll tell you that was something we discovered, and particularly given all the stress, is the number of people who came and said, you can't pay me enough to do this because it's so stressful. And prior to COVID, our response might have been, okay, so you don't want to be a general manager? Well, good luck to you. We'll see you in another industry. Now, very much taking the approach of, you're incredible talent and you're an incredible leader. If you don't want to be a general manager, we'll take you as an assistant general manager. Let's have that conversation and take a much more human approach. Another example as a company restaurant, then I'll turn it over to Paul, that we did is, again, as we look at our employee base, one of the things we did was we implemented a program called the Inspiring Grants, where we offer $1,000 grants to employees who've been with us for a certain amount of time. And those grants could be for anything, for a computer, if they're going to school. It could be to fix their car. It could be to help them make a down payment on an apartment. It's really meant to show we care, to show that we're not just interested in them showing up at the job, and to provide enough flexibility also from the benefit to say, we want it to meet the needs that you have, and we don't always know what those are. So those are a couple of things. I'll turn it over to.
Yeah, one of the things we've done is offer shorter shifts, like we talked about earlier. We wouldn't normally hire anybody for 1 or 2 days a week, but now we're hiring anybody that'll work. If it's 1 day a week, that's great. More flexibility. We get more time off, more paid time off. And one of the things we do, not as a group, but as a group in a co-op like Nashville, to retain employees, and it really works. We have a scholarship program, kind of like what she has with the grant program, where we give employees $1,000 a year, you know, to go to college, and that helps us retain those kids through college. If they transfer to a town, say 30, 40 miles away, where they're going to college, they'll work there to retain eligibility to come back and get that scholarship next year. And we've had numerous families with 3 and 4 children that would work for us for 4 years to get that $1,000 every year. So that kind of works too. But the flexibility and the shorter shifts is what we're offering now that we used to not offer before. That has helped us a whole lot.
I would say for us, I mean, definitely flexibility. That has been, we do employee engagement surveys as well as stay interviews. Why are you staying? And that's something I think companies often forget about, is you wait and do an exit interview. Well, that time, it's too late then. You really need to be doing stay interviews to help understand what your staff loves about your organization and then build on that. And flexibility has always been part of our model. We have individuals, though, who want to work, because of the nature of the work we do with individuals in their home, they could be there 24 hours a day. Others, you know, they want 4 hours here, 4 hours there. So we've absolutely always been flexible. I think the other thing that we've done is we've partnered with companies that make accessible pay in between pay periods, so that they have the ability, if their car breaks down, that they can get that pay ahead of time. And just really working on flexibility. What do they need? Like everyone else has talked about, our staff is largely women and mothers. many of them single mothers, and that flexibility and access to daycare is critically important, and transferability. So we have all of that, and can offer opportunities for them to progress in their career as well, with additional educational opportunities that can add to their credentials for other types of promotions and positions within the organization.
That's terrific. I love how these benefits that you're offering, the scholarships, the grants, are also helping to put franchising in a great light. I mean, my gosh, Paul, the fact that you have families whose kids are committing to working for you for 4+ years so that they can go to college is amazing. And they're going to tell their friends, and they're going to live the rest of their life with such a wonderful experience on what franchising has afforded them in their life. That is really touching. Jerry, I know that you encourage your employees to share the successes that being a Great Clips employee has afforded them. So if you could share that, the word of mouth and the success stories that you encourage, I think that will be very interesting as well.
Yeah, so again, through our Facebook page, we encourage them to let us know how our employment is impacting their lives. And we worked really hard, especially during COVID, with pay increases, and we have a full slate of benefits and all those kinds of things. And many of our staff come from some family issues and generational issues where having a full-time job and maybe owning your own home is not something that many of their family has ever seen. So we've done budgeting classes so that they can learn how to manage their money correctly. And we've shown them, I'll just give an example. We've shown them that, buying a expensive latte every day may not be in their best financial interests, and perhaps making coffee at home and saving that money for a new car or something like that may be best. But what really tugs at our heartstrings and allows us to leverage some things so that we can recruit more people is when one of our employees posts themselves and their family standing in front of a new house. And they literally post that they couldn't have done this if it wasn't for our employment, and that they name our company, they call us out and all those kinds of things, thank us. Many times they'll say, this is the first house my family has owned in generations, those kinds of things. Could be something as simple as a new car or something like that, but they post those things and then they allow us to use them in our recruiting campaigns. So, other people see themselves in that position. They're struggling with the same things. And then they say, well, gee, I'm doing the same job as that person is, but I can't afford a new house. Maybe I should switch horses or something like that. So we've got our staff right now doing homegrown employment videos, if you will, where they just go on their phone and they talk about how great their job is, how much they love working where they're at, maybe talk about the things that really cause us to stand out as opposed to somewhere that they used to work. And then again, they allow us to use that in our recruiting efforts. So as has been mentioned here, me going online, or one of my daughters, and claiming that we're the best employer around, everybody does that. But when you get a stylist to go online and talk about that and then allow you to share it to the stylist community, it's very powerful, very impactful, and we see pretty quick results from those kinds of videos.
Fantastic. And this all adds to the culture, which is priceless.
Yeah, and I'll talk about that just for a minute, because again, going through COVID and staying in contact with them through Facebook and doing videos regularly, that's what we were getting back from them. I've got friends in the industry who don't know whether they'll have a job when they get back. They don't know what their job's going to look like. They don't know how safe they're going to be. And because our culture is to be very open and honest with our staff, and not just, we kind of open our books to them in a lot of cases. We let them know how the world is impacting our business, which may filter down to them, so that when we have to do things, they understand it and they appreciate that. So then when they know that we've gone overboard and done something really great for them, their take on it is, oh my gosh, you know, the Akers are struggling because of X, Y, and Z, whatever it might happen to be, and yet they're willing to help us out to make our lives better on the other end. So we gain a lot of credibility with our own staff, which feeds down to potential staff as we move forward. So yeah, culture is everything in the world we live in today.
And to build on that, what has changed in this pandemic environment is safety. You know, we were a business that, because of what we do, we were essential. We were always open. We were always hiring. But making sure that our caregivers knew that they were safe, that we had retrained them all on infectious disease control, that they could get certified in taking care of clients and minimizing that was critically important. We invested in personal protective equipment, all those things to make sure that they were safe. That was a big win from in addition to the already strong culture.
Emma, are you finding that candidates are inquiring about safety measures?
Absolutely.
In addition to current employees?
Absolutely. Our industry is huge, and there are just like in every other industry, there's good and bad players, and they want to know because they're going home to families and in often cases children. And given the work that we do, there is a higher risk, and so we want to make sure that they understand, looking at us as an organization, that we have their best interest at heart, not just the flexibility and the benefits and all of those things. We're going to do all we can to keep it safe, to have the appropriate protocols in place that they can trust that everyone's doing all they can.
That's terrific. Next question. So in addition to safety protocols and communicating those to candidates, are there other benefits or things that people are asking about or saying, I want to come work for you, but we talked a bit about flexibility and scheduling. Are there any other requests that you're getting from your candidate pool?
I think, and this goes back to some comments that were made earlier, they want a more transparent, clear path, career path outlined for them. And while we had that, or we thought we had that in place, what we realized is we needed to be a lot more specific. We needed to be a lot more prescriptive. And in addition to providing that, doing some of the testimonials as we go through. So being able to demonstrate from day one, look, if, you know, in 4 months, you could be a shift leader. And then in 2 months, you could be an assistant general manager. In 1 year, you could be a general manager if you complete these courses. And showing that piece, I think, is something we're seeing, at least for us, and the newer, younger generation, a lot more. I mean, I came from a generation that was, look, if you're not fired, that's a good thing. So you just keep showing up to work, and that's the only feedback you need. It's about how many hours you work and take the initiative. You never say no, you always say yes. That it's just different today. And so how do we, one of those differences is they've got a vision for their future and their career path, and they want to know what that is with your organization. And culturally, as you mentioned that, Abby, it is conveying a lot more fun. For us, what we found when we did some employee research and we said, why do you stay? It was career, but it was also a lot about the fun and the teamwork and the camaraderie. So I'll let Paul talk a little bit about that because he's really done a great job with his team.
Yeah, we haven't lost one general manager during the 18 months of COVID, and very few assistant managers. And we've got a big assistant manager pool. Where we had the most trouble was employees. I mean, most of them were school kids, and you know, they just didn't feel safe doing what we were doing, meeting the public and whatnot. So we had a hard time for a while filling the employee spots below the management. But like we said earlier, it's more flexibility, giving them more time off. It's not so much about the pay with the kids we hire. I mean, they make pretty good money, so it's not so much about the pay. It's just the flexibility, giving them time off for the ball games and their family times that they used to not ask for. they're asking more for now. So we're just being more flexible with their schedules and trying to do it that way.
So Paul, what do you think for your GMs to not have any turnover? And I'm speaking as like having 3,500 drive-ins. I can tell you that was not the experience with many of our drive-ins. We saw long-term GMs quit. What do you think some of the cultural aspects to retain, not losing any of your general managers or assistant general managers through extraordinarily stressful times?
Well, most of our, I will say most, all of our managers are more like family. I mean, we treat them like family. They've been with us probably an average of 15, 16 to 18 years. We have retirement programs with our management, and we've had 3 or 4 of those guys over the years retire and stay with us as ownership. And so we just treat them like family, and the culture's, you know, really there.
You might talk about your conventions because they're a family.
Yes, we just had a convention 2 weeks ago for all of our managers, and it's not really a convention, it was more of a vacation. We took them to Destin, Florida. We do this every year, and normally it is a meeting convention, but this past 2 years with COVID, we just took them and said, hey, it's a free vacation. Take your family. We're going to spend 5 days there. We'll have no meetings. We'll have dinners together, and take your family and have fun. And Claudia actually came last year, and Eddie and some of the other guys come down every year as well. But we do that just to show them the thank yous and how much we appreciate them.
That's fantastic. Sounds like a lot of fun.
Well, I know I want to sign up to go on vacation with Paul, so I may be out there to work. I'll tell you a little bit about the tools and things like that we're seeing people ask more about now, and it's not new. We've had it forever, but COVID changed the way the average employee looks at life. And so we always had a real robust health insurance policy. We always had great other benefits, but health and 401k are 2 things that, you know, younger people before COVID didn't think about health insurance because they'd figure it out, you know, or whatever. They didn't think about retirement because it was too far in the future. But there were a lot of people came through COVID very scared about their health and well-being long-term. So now we're getting a lot of feedback, very positive feedback from our existing employees who have probably doubled their involvement in our health and 401k programs. And interestingly enough, new applicants that are coming in are suddenly asking the questions about that. Before, we would never get a question about health or retirement, never. You know, we were hiring 20-somethings. You know, they're in their 20s and they don't really care about those kinds of things. And now they do, because they saw the impact of COVID on a lot of lives around them, and they realize how important it is. So while we always had it, now it's become a huge recruiting tool that's really given us a leg up on, you know, maybe many of our competitors. So I would argue that if you're not offering it, you need to be. And either way, you need to be advertising it, getting the word out, and making it as robust as you can afford to do, because it's going to set you apart from virtually everybody else in the marketplace right now.
For us, it really has been what we're getting asked more of is career path, flexibility, and paid time off. Those are our caregivers do really hard work. They work with a medically fragile population, and it is physically demanding, and it is emotionally demanding. You don't do the kind of work that our teams do. You get very attached to the family that you work with. And so for them, that flexibility and paid time off becomes a bigger ask than some of the other things. Those are great to have, and we do, but that's what we've seen through COVID.
Have any of you changed your pathing to leadership, your career development through COVID? Paul, keeping all of your managers is really impressive. And Claudia, you were saying that there used to be sort of a timeline, this far, check the box, and then you move on. Have you seen that change?
We are certainly accelerating it, and that is the piece. You know, I think sometimes, whether it's franchising or in our particular industry, there's a lot of focus on, oh my gosh, it's just minimum wage. You can't make a living off minimum wage. Well, the reality is we have hundreds of general management positions, and how do we what we found is, particularly during COVID, if you want to work, we can accelerate you. We've got the tools, so you can go into go from an hourly employee into a salaried role that is solid middle income, upper middle income, that provides you incredible opportunities. And I think that's huge. Speaking as, I'll share with you, so we are Sonic Drive-In. We are part of the Inspire family of restaurant brands. So we have Arby's, Buffalo Wild Wings, Dunkin', Baskin Robbins, Jimmy John's. And so what's exciting on our side from a company restaurant is we're starting to tell the story too of career progression, not just with Sonic, but once you're a part of Inspire, you can go to different brands and you still have the same benefit package. And the world of career opportunity still opens up. I do want to offer, and I'm going to put in a plug over here. We have this great program. I know Paul's wincing because we think it's a competitive advantage. We have this great program called Dr. Pepper Sonic Games. We start them every January. It's a premier training program. By entering into it, their crews are incentivized to not only complete the training, but you get prizes. At the end of the competition, we select the top 12 finalists. We have individual competitions in grill cook, dresser, fountain, ice cream, and then team awards. For our team members who have never been out of their city, never been on a plane, never stayed at a hotel, never stayed at a hotel with a pool before, to have that opportunity to have fun, earn prizes along the way, and then once a year have the opportunity to be treated like rock stars and just win a gold, silver, or bronze medal. For many of our employees who did not experience success in a traditional academic environment, that has been life-changing for them. And I will share with you, we generally have not talked about it. We don't talk about it external facing and we're starting to incorporate that more as part of our kind of recruitment piece, because when you talk about what employees want, that fun sense of family, this provides that.
It's amazing. I bet there are great testimonials and again, going back and sharing with their friends and family, look what I accomplished and look how my company rewarded me.
Well, and Abby, one thing that we did was the first year of COVID, we couldn't get together, and we usually have this competition at our national convention. What we ended up doing was literally getting 2 Greyhound buses and doing the competitions in the hometowns of where those finalists are. And it was an incredible learning for us because, to your point, all of a sudden, parents who couldn't afford to travel, the community was able to take part in this, and it's just unleashed a whole new level of excitement.
Yeah, some of the stories I heard from the kids in Nashville this year when we brought them together was how the mayor got involved in some of the towns, the fire department, the schools. Everybody came out on the day of the competition to greet the buses and the people from Dr. Pepper and Sonic. It was just a great experience for these kids. And like I said, a lot of them got to travel for the first time on a plane and stay somewhere overnight. All expenses were paid. We show them the gratitude they deserve when they do that every year.
That is fantastic. All righty. Wow, this time is flying by. I am going to ask a couple questions that have come in from the audience. And if anybody in the audience has any questions for the panelists, feel free to pop them into the chat. Let's see, someone wants to know, how is your company's leadership communicating information or educational resources around safety regulations, testing, or vaccination requirements?
Well, I can tell you ours. Again, we use a company-based Facebook page for so much of the communication, and that can go out in the middle of the night. You can do it pretty much any time. So whenever anything changes there, somebody in our leadership group, or maybe I, will go on and do some sort of a video explaining that kind of stuff. We get a lot of chat conversation going on, a lot of back and forth. texting has become the new way to do instant messaging out to people and that kind of stuff. So, I like the Facebook videos because it's more personal. You can share a lot more things that way, I think, and I think it just creates a better culture. So that's the thing that we've done mostly.
So I think we're in healthcare, so it really hits home with us, and we have been abiding by a lot of different regulations than maybe most. I'll say that you have to use a very robust communication strategy. Like Jerry, we have a Facebook page. However, we also utilize community conversations on a regular basis. We utilize training webinars with regards to new regulations, access to, back in the day, paycheck protection programs, written communications, our hub, our intranet. So we time and bring a cadence of communications around those topics that are incredibly important. And right now with vaccination and mandates, I mean, it's a constant update, especially in our industry. So we utilize multiple channels to be able to communicate that.
Yeah, I echo that. And I think if we think about it from a franchisor perspective, we've got an incredible government relations team that sits in our communications department, and they are constantly keeping us all updated, hosting franchisee webinars. We're really clear on what the franchisor can do, what the franchisees are responsible for. At one point, and this is the focus I know for all of us, is, we had with restaurants in 46 plus states, or in some cases 50 states, and local community municipality ordinances, you've got a lot of regulation. So in many cases, it's not, we can't have all the answers, but can we link them to the appropriate regulatory bodies that do have the answers that can get them to that piece? And I think on the, on the vaccination, we're all looking to see who the right third-party partners are who can help facilitate the implementation of this new mandate.
And I really have to put a plug in for the IFA at this point too. I mean, earlier today, there was a great webinar that was done on, the vaccine mandates. And, through COVID, the IFA has been just an incredible resource for franchisors, franchisees, suppliers around all things related to COVID, including now vaccine. I just think they've done an amazing job under some really difficult circumstances.
Absolutely. The IFA has been working round the clock to keep everybody up to speed and informed with regulations that are changing so quickly. All right, another question. Do we think that this will be sustained beyond the recovery, whenever that might be? And I take that to mean the changes, the culture, the more flexible time off, maybe hiring people that 2 years ago you might have said, you can't work 5 days a week, we're not going to hire you. Do you think that these changes are going to stay?
Well, I think the vast majority of them will be mandatory to stay. You don't see employees taking less once they've got used to something. So I think the vast majority are going to stay. I think, we might have a slight evolutionary time frame when we start getting back to, maybe the expectations start going up as staffing becomes a little easier, where, we don't have to be quite as flexible, but I doubt we're ever going to get rid of everything that we've got right now. And I think, as owners, we tend to look at that negatively, but there's a lot of positive things that we can get out of this too. It's all in how you position yourself as an organization. So by, as an employer, by giving better benefits and being a little more flexible, you become the employer of choice. So maybe you are the first one to get fully staffed, and maybe it's easier, as Paul has found, to keep general managers, and those kinds of things. So I think it's a tough learning curve we're going through right now. But I think if we, glass half full, glass half empty type of thing, if we really look at it as to how we can use that to our advantage in the future, continue to position yourself as the employer of choice. If there's costs involved with it, it most likely will have to be passed along in what we charge for our products and services. And frankly, right now, what we're finding is the general public is used to prices going up because everything is going up. So vast majority of the expenses can be passed along. And if, I can't speak for other products and services, but we generally have to round up in, even increments, and the actual cost that goes into that even increment for the changes is usually much less. So as an owner, you may actually do a little better in the long run if you just position it that way.
Yeah, I'll like what Jerry said. I agree. We don't have any plan on going back. We like what we're doing and like the employee base that we're getting. So we'll maintain that for as long as we can.
And I would even say that as time goes by, there's always going to be change. There's always going to be improvement. And I think they're here to stay, and we'll continue to learn more and grow as organizations as the smart ones listen to what they're hearing. And that's going to be the key.
I think so, Emma. And I want to say in each of our industries, while we have very different industries, one of the key themes you've heard is that we have a predominantly female working population with families. And as I think about the challenges that women, particularly single women with children, have had to face to pay the bills and provide financial security, let alone financial success, I think, again, as Jerry, Paul, Emma, these are all positive things as we go forward that not only help our businesses, but help the community. And how can we continue to learn and innovate? Jerry's great innovation on buying the daycare to be able to provide that kind of stability. What are things that we can do that we can continue to promote this workforce as a long-term workforce that provides models for generations to come?
Well, to tag on to what Claudia just said, many franchisees will be too small to do some of the things the way that we've just described them, but in their strip center or next door, there are 2 or 3 or 4 or 5 other businesses that are facing the same struggles. So, compare notes with people that are in the same boat that you are and come up with a way that you can leverage what you're doing across a broad spectrum to get better benefits for everybody's staff, or to give, better daycare to single moms, and just try and be very innovative about how you look at that, because the world has changed, and then for the most part, it's not going back the other way. So, I see so many owners digging their heels in, refusing to make changes and thinking it's going to go back the other way. It's not. Don't want to rain on anybody's parade, but it's not going back the other way. So we might as well just get ahead of the curve, be entrepreneurs as we set out to be innovative, and be ahead of everybody else in implementing these things.
Well said, Jerry. We've learned, we've become comfortable with the flexibility and the PTO and career pathing. That's wonderful. These are all positives that have come out of this pandemic. We should encourage the progress that has been made in recognizing people and supporting success, and using TikTok to recruit people. Lots of very creative, innovative ideas have been shared today. And I'm going to pass it back to Alan. Wanted to let you know that there are some handouts, including some resources that Paychex does have available. You all had mentioned looking to a resource, a third party. We do have COVID resources, including state-by-state resources that are available on our website, paychex.com. And Alan, I'm going to hand it back to you. Claudia, Paul, Jerry, and Emma, thank you all so much for participating today. These were great ideas and a lot of great collaboration. And I look forward to seeing everybody in San Diego at the IFA's convention in February.
Thank you. Thank you so much for having us.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Thanks, Abby. You're a terrific moderator. I'll be calling you again for the next panel, I think. So thank you very much for that. Thank you to Paychex for the ongoing support. Thank you, Claudia. Thank you, Paul. Thank you, Jerry. Thank you, Emma. Fantastic panel. I've got pages of notes. I have some questions for follow-up, but we'll keep those for another time. Thank you so much for investing your time today. Thank you very much for the people who joined us online for investing their time in the IFA education, our webinar series. It's fantastic. Our next webinar is December 1st, and at which point we're going to explore some alternative recruiting paths, some alternative recruiting pools for talent that maybe people haven't thought about before. And so stay tuned for more information on that. I think that's everything I have. Like I said, don't forget, we recorded this. We're going to put it up on community.franchise.org, share with your friends, and see you all in San Diego, if not before. Thank you very much, and goodbye.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Bye-bye.
Bye-bye.
Thanks, guys.